All right.
Welcome to the Data and Grants Subcommittee of the Athens and Mission Commission. I'm Mark A. Bell. I'm chair of the committee, and we will call the meeting to order at this point. Present are Alex Bond, James Barlament, and Dan Sizemore, and Todd Miller. First item on the agenda is to, I just asked that off air, are there any other additions to the agenda? I didn't get any. So the first thing I think is to talk about the grant application for the America Walks proposal. And we have a document that we have already started on Google Drive. And if you want to search for that document among your shared documents, it's called America Walks Flashing Beacon Grant 2021. And let me just pull it up on my, and if you want, I can share the screen. Perhaps that would be a way to just kind of scan through it and then make sure we're kind of figure out, attach it, basically just attach maybe names or initials to each section that needs to be written. That's okay.
So hey, Mark, do we have minutes to approve from our last meeting?
Oh, I guess we have to do that, don't we? Let me see if there are minutes. Did I write minutes?
Well, I wasn't even sure if we had them.
Yeah, I think I might have written some, but let me just have to find them on my computer. Grants and Data Subcommittee by date, minutes for 2021. What do you know? So I'll pull them up on the screen. I can just share my. Where is sharing on this?
It should be in the bottom center.
Yeah. Oh, it's grayed out for me. I'm not able to share.
Okay, let me see if I can
make me a co-host or something like that.
Co-host.
Excuse me.
All right.
Okay.
Is that working?
And it's still grayed out. It says co-host me, and but this is still.
Make him a presenter.
I'm going to try making you a presenter.
You are now the presenter, and it's still grayed out. I don't know what else to do. If someone else can access that document and share it, or Dan, I don't know if you can bring it up.
Are you looking go ahead and email it to me. And
are you looking?
What's that?
Are you looking for the minutes?
I have the minutes. I was just going to show them on the screen. I have them.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead and email me the stuff, and I can share my screen.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, the main document we're going to talk about today is just on Google, in that Google Drive document. I'm sending the minutes to you right now. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why the sharing wouldn't work.
You're fine.
Maybe it's sent. Yeah, it's still grayed out. Open system preferences.
Weird. I think I can share, which is strange.
James, do you have an option to share?
I do. Yeah.
It might be the device.
Because it's a stupid Mac, right?
I've had issues with.
You guys see that?
I've had issues before where I joined in through the web. Yeah, we can see that. And let's see. I'll go ahead and share the minutes because I just got those.
Okay.
And if you could make it a little bit bigger when you do get there, James, it's just a little hard to see on the screen.
Yep.
Or maybe I can do that from my end. All right.
All right. So
here are the minutes.
Yep. So these are the minutes.
Basically, it's where we chose the site, and then we talked about the data repository. So I move that we accept the minutes or whatever.
I second that motion.
All right. I think we're the only two voting.
And I think you're the only two to vote.
I think we're good. I think we got that covered. All right.
Perfect.
That was well done.
All right.
Well, let's bring up the document now.
Just following procedure, you know.
I
Now, James,
know,
you
I
can-
know.
All right.
You want me to share it? I can share it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll make it a little bigger.
Thanks. Perfect. I can see that. So
There we
the
go.
link to their RFA is at the top. Request for applications is sort of the university speak for that. I don't know if that's used more broadly. It's due May 31st, so we have about 2 weeks left to go. And if you want to scroll down a little bit, I did begin to describe the community demographics and some data points with some blanks that I have to, maybe get from Dan in terms of the number of miles of different paths and under construction. And then the next one was a description of the organization, so a description of Athens in Motion. And so for those two sections, at this point, I mean, there's at least something there. If you guys could look at those and use the suggesting mode to suggest edits to that, if that's okay.
Okay.
I don't think we have to discuss them in detail right now. That's something you can just, scan through and make some suggestions. And so the next part is describing the street crossing project, the type of street, the issues with it, nearby destinations, potential users of the crossing. And I'm happy to do that, but that's an area where I'll probably need a little more, I haven't ever driven down that. I've ridden the Firefly many times along that area, but I haven't driven that road. So I don't know who's most familiar with that. Lauren might actually be a person that we could have take a look at it as well, since she lives in that neighborhood. Anyone want to volunteer?
Yeah,
to
and
take that? Anything you don't volunteer for, I'll just do. So.
Well, we can also assign stuff to Jake, so keep that in mind.
That's very true.
Yeah, that's right. Excellent.
Hey, Alex,
Excellent.
I'm curious. So you guys have been working with that developer, you and Todd, to kind of look at what that crossing would look like. I think there was originally one proposal, and then it's a different developer now, maybe. What is the current status?
This is outside of the developer completely. What we proposed to CDBG had nothing to do with them. It was only Leisure Services executing it.
Okay, so they weren't planning on putting in a mid-block crossing. They were just showing it as an opportunity that y'all would put in?
No, I think originally the developer talked about it, but then that one went away. And now it sounds like there's a second one. Todd probably has more interest or info on that, but there was no discussion with a developer about this grant application.
Oh yeah, no, I just meant in terms of like what y'all currently have for it, because it might be helpful. Todd, do you have any information on the current developer and what they were kind of proposing?
No, other than that stuff I forwarded you, that was the last communication I'd had with that developer. And that was, December or whatever.
What kind of a development is it? Is it in some way, is it is it sort of a mixed income kind of development, or is it student centric kind of housing?
It's supposed to be mixed development is the original one. It had like multiple housing options, from like little single family houses to townhouses and so forth.
Okay. Is it something that you think we could make a case for it strengthening the need for this crossing?
I think it would be good. Yeah.
I think regardless of the development, we need it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been kind of outlined by the community, but yes, if a, I don't know, townhome, small home, efficiency home development went there, yes, I think it would increase as well.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the primary argument, I agree. And it's pretty clear that it is coming from the community, which is great. But I think it could be additional, part of the argument. So I think,
Yeah, because the tricky part was, at least with that development, it made a logical sense that your crosswalk was going into, somewhere and being dispersed. Because if not, we're just ending it into the side of, I mean, you cross over and there's nothing on the other side of the street to stand on, other than right of way. And so, yeah, we that's the only thing, is figuring out how to, and that'll be part of transportation, I assume, because at one time we looked at sliding it down towards I think it's Bernie or something like that, and that at least gets you to that intersection. But then that would require stairs up to the Firefly Trail, which are not desirable. And so we were just looking at a couple of different options when we originally were looking at this thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think the argument that it creates this is going to be, once the bridge is built and, it creates a level, path into downtown Athens from this neighborhood, and making that connection from the street to the Firefly Trail transparent or not transparent, simple and straightforward, and a ramp would be, I think, preferable if we can, rather than steps. So, and I think that's possible. Do you think that's possible at where the informal trail is right now, that we've been talking about?
That's where, that's the major question for streets and stuff. Will they allow us to just dead end a crosswalk into basically somebody's yard? So that's
right. Tim's email specifically looked at that, and since it is Daniel may have to help me with the term, but since it's a neighborhood road, for lack of whatever the real term is, that was okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we may wind up having to put a little piece of sidewalk just to have a landing point, just like you see at those when they put red lights and stuff at an intersection, and ped poles. Even though they're way out in the country and nobody's got sidewalks, they at least have the landing part built. We might that would probably be the most, what we would have to do is create the landing across on the other side. So
okay, all right. So this seems like something that probably one of us from the Athens in Motion Commission could take the first crack at. So James, Jake, or me? I'm really agnostic to it. I don't care. I'm happy to do it.
I could take a crack
I think
at
you
this
also
one.
mentioned Lauren. We could if you want to work with Lauren at least to kind of get that context, that could be helpful too.
Yeah. So JB with Lauren LB.
Okay.
Right? Sounds good. And then in terms of the public engagement used for the proposed project.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be.
Me neither. That seems like, I'm hoping that maybe Dan would know how to do that, or what would be involved.
I think something that would be helpful here is to outline the how both developers have mentioned wanting to have that access. And Alex, you've mentioned a few times that y'all have kind of some information, anecdotally even, that that shows the desire for this from the neighborhood.
Is there even just
could you all put together something for that?
Yeah. Is there any documentation, any people we could quote from the neighborhood who could, express that desire? We know we've heard about it, but I don't know who it's been expressed to or whether there's any record of it. But if that exists, and again, you might want to even check with Laura, and she may know.
Well, I know we've got at least 2 emails from different people. I know I've got the contact info for the adjacent neighbor, who's very interested and very all about it. And then it's been talked about in mayor commission meetings, especially by Commissioner Parker. So
Yeah.
I think that there's a fair amount of documented stuff.
Okay.
So I would say, since this is kind of a written narrative, it'd be helpful to kind of refer to those things, but I don't think we need to necessarily add them as attachments or anything. I don't think that it's going to be that serious, right?
No. I just think it'd be nice to have a couple of quotes. You know, Commissioner Parker was quoted as saying blah, and
Right.
email.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, local residents have said, you know, X, Y, and Z. So I think that's, and I didn't mean to impugn him by saying blah. That's
Yeah.
Commissioner Parker's a bright woman who speaks very eloquently about the issues in our town. So let's see, Commissioner Parker, anything else? Please describe. So I think that's a good, you know, chunk of information there. Please describe and explain. Go ahead. So who's going to do that?
Yeah, who's gonna do that?
Does anybody who?
Oh,
I mean,
could you
at least
could you
provide some of
Alex,
the
could you get
stuff.
that together?
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to find. Todd,
I'll
do you
do the
remember that lady's
narrative.
name?
Yeah, if you just get any quotes or anything together, you know, that would be great, and then I can stitch it into a narrative. Okay, so
Yeah.
if you can just plug in any quotes or information in there, and then I'll put it into a narrative form. Please describe any existing partnerships.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Please note any. Maybe Jake would be good at that one.
Okay.
The next one.
Mm-hmm. Existing partnerships. Blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, the Leisure Services Partnership, Firefly Inc.
Yeah.
I think. Am I thinking of the right one? Envision has mentioned neighborhood connectors and their stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm sure Athens Wellbeing Project has something referencing the need for better
Like Athens.
access to bike
Mm-hmm.
and ride stuff.
Good. All right.
Please identify the challenges facing your community that this project will address. Maximum 800 characters. Blah blah.
I can take that one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're pretty immersed in all that through via the schools. So
Yeah,
that's
I've
perfect.
got some data. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Next page.
Walking and walkability to underserved populations.
So I can do that. I'm just plug my name in there. That's fine. I'll
Okay.
come up with something. And there's some broader, you know, national organizations that are really focused on bike and pedestrian projects as you know, built around, you know, a goal of greater equity, and then at the local level, that, you know, traditional, unfortunately, underinvestment in communities of color in this neighborhood as well. And and that, you know, maybe also that it's really central to the Athens in Motion Commission vision. Is equity is central to a lot of the prioritization that we do.
And also, I mean, I think something to note is that something that we've heard a lot of is that the Firefly Trail is kind of building through this, you know, low-income, underserved population through their corridor, but then there's not very many access points, so it almost feels like it's walled off from them. And so this would really open up and welcome that invite to the neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you know, and I'm sure there's some demographic stats that we can pull from the census tracts, but I know this area is one of the highest percentages of African American, and
Right.
And if you could Is there a source of those data? Yeah, okay, so you're already adding that there. Good.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I've been looking at the social, I think it's called the Social Equity Atlas through
Yes.
Athens Wellbeing Project.
Yeah, Jerry Shannon. Yeah.
And that's been a really, yeah. So I've been
Yeah, that's
using that.
awesome.
It'll pop out some cool maps that could work.
Okay, great. Let's see. So that's good. Does local government, that seems like a local government
Hold on
thing.
just a second.
Sure.
If you go up, are we on the right spot? Which
Where?
segment are we underneath? Like if you scroll up slightly, the question, sorry, other direction. Please identify the challenges facing your community. So I was kind of referring to the Athens Social Atlas and the data from Athens Wellbeing Project for the census tract to go underneath that next topic of how it would bring walking and walkability to underserved populations, because that was talking specifically about outlining that this is an underserved population. But
yeah, I think
I might be interpreting that differently.
Well, I feel like that previous question about identifying challenges, that sounds more like a needs assessment question to me. And then the next question actually talks about bringing walking and walkability to underserved populations and how can that serve the needs of the community. That's how I was interpreting it. As they kind of work in tandem with each other, the two questions.
Yeah, they seem somewhat overlapping, the questions.
Yeah.
So I think you can refer to it in both, or you can, make a reference to it in both sections. But we have plenty of, 800 words.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Great point.
Could someone from government or staff do the next one to do with jurisdiction and cost?
Local government jurisdiction. Yeah, yes, that's going to be traffic engineering, and I'll work with that. So you just put my name on it.
Okay. And then also one from the city manager or TPW or.
Let's see. So this is the local government with jurisdiction over street support. See, I think it also says local government or department within the thing. So since that's our department, we could possibly get something from the city manager. But with 2-week deadline, it might be.
Yeah, I was actually reading the next one already. When I was talking about TPW or city manager, I was talking about the next one already.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I was just referring to.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so this one would be TPW or city manager.
I mean, honestly, I'll forward you guys the email. I can forward Daniel the email that pretty much already speaks to that. Like if it's just yes, no, that's already kind of taken care of.
Okay, looks like they have a specific form though that they want filled in. There's a ownership acceptance letter and a worksheet fillable form.
They want it converted to PDF.
Okay.
I'll set up a meeting for us to do that as staff. So it would be helpful to have the stuff that we're going to need to be doing in an email afterwards. Just because I'm going to update Stephen on this, and then we'll set up some meetings to do our portions.
So should I just put it into the minutes?
I assume I already have access to this document, but I couldn't find it in my inbox. So if you just forward it on to me, I can copy stuff over.
Okay, I'll just make sure you're shared on it. I'm just looking right now. Looks like you are. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you're shared, James. Pretty much everyone on Athens in Motion is shared on it, including ugabiology@gmail.com for some reason. Okay.
Who's that?
I have no idea. All right. How do we, so this completed crossing location evaluation worksheet by a city official, who would that be?
Oh, me.
Okay,
Put my
thank you,
name on it.
Dan. Yeah. And then how do we plan to evaluate and track the project? I see the note about a trail counter, pre and post. Can you actually
Yeah, let's
visit? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say let's loop traffic engineering in on that, because I don't want to make any commitments that they won't be able to keep up. So I want to make sure that we can have that.
Okay.
I think Jake would be good at that one.
Mm-hmm. I think Jake would be outstanding. Really perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Please provide all.
Yeah.
Do you have a point staff or designated volunteer?
That's me.
Okay.
One day I'll get a marketing person, communication.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, okay, so
That's more Athens in Motion, isn't
let me
it?
back up a second.
Yeah. Is it Athens in Motion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm realizing, let's go back to the previous question. So
Okay.
this is along a leisure services facility, not bike ped. So Alex, would that be Amy?
Well, so say it one more time.
Which question are we talking
It's
about?
kind of at a weird scale for me to see. So
That point person or
Do you have
designated
a point
staff
staff?
for communications.
Because they're going to want this to
leisure
be looped in through social media.
Yeah, leisure can take that, no problem.
Okay.
And I think that'll enhance our chances, because we, if they're factoring that into the grant, like whether we're going to promote it, we don't really have much of a social media presence.
Yeah, well, whether it's through social media on the grant award itself, or like the leisure services listens, like where the projects are, both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I put a link to the document in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, and then have we ever applied? Athens in Motion certainly hasn't, so thinking no.
And that's a no, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I'd say let's work on this document and then maybe set a deadline, if possible, of a week from today, so that then at that point, I'll set aside a couple of hours to transfer it onto their form and make sure we have all the documents together, and then we can go ahead and do the submission.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
We didn't give Jake enough to do.
And then, yeah, let's go back through and reassign stuff to him.
Yeah. No, well, I was wondering actually about the something to do with the social media. I wasn't quite clear. Is that social media from Athens in Motion, or social media from the some TBW or leisure services?
I think it could be anything. Like it could be ACC Leisure, Athens in Motion.
When it says your work, and we're the ones applying, that's why it just.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we would definitely want it to be, even if it's, does the Athens in Motion have digital media presence, like social media presence?
We have a Facebook page.
And I don't know if there's an
what we could
Instagram.
possibly do is we could I mean, we don't really announce collaborations very often. So yeah, this might be for Athens in Motion. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a two-part. I think that the top part, they want to make sure that they have somebody who can promote this project, the award, and then they're also asking, they want to, it's almost like a reference check. Please list all the places that this will show up. You know what I mean? So for the
and we
top
can
question,
create, I mean, we can create a Twitter handle for Athens in Motion. We can create Instagram, and if we need to.
Yeah,
Let's
but
assign that one to Jake.
Again, if they're looking to reference check you right now, definitely make sure that the leisure services one's down there.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Firefly, I want to say Firefly Inc. does have stuff that would also, they would probably repost it on Firefly Inc. stuff too.
Right.
Makes sense.
Maybe Jake can help us put a list together for that one.
That's good. We don't want him to feel left out of the process.
Right. All right.
Anything else? Are we good with the document?
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good.
Well, that was good.
And I opened up the Word file, and so yeah, that might be a city manager. I'll forward the template on to them. It does mention in their template that it says the purpose of this letter is to acknowledge that Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County has reviewed the application for 2021 Crosswalk Grant, RRFB, and in case of a winning application, would accept the proposed safety upgrades. So I don't know if they're going to want to actually see the full grant materials before they sign it, but I'll find out more information from our side.
Sounds good.
Right.
Does that make sense? Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
See, so really, the only other thing was, are there any data discussions to be had? I had one question, but I'd like to hear from others first. Anything else?
I have our data set that I've been working on. I put it together for our projects subcommittee because they're looking at talking about our next line of projects. And so I'll go ahead and share screen so I can show it. So let's see. So right now, I've kind of put together our bike and ped network, and this is just based off of what came from Athens, or the Athens in Motion original project. And so these bright colors, the bright bold ones are all tier 1. Tier 2 is dark and slightly more narrow, and then tier 3 are these really light ones. And then purple is bike and orange is pedestrian. And so what I plan on doing is kind of merging those together into one network that will also show existing bike and ped improvements, as well as a few other criteria. So let me actually, I'm going to share a different screen to show you what I'm talking about. So what do I need to zoom in? I guess probably.
Okay, better.
So
Thanks.
so yeah. So right now, kind of disregard the color scheme. You know, it's shown over here, but essentially what I've done is this is 4 different networks, 4 different data sets that we have that have different information. So that dissolved tiers is from that original bike ped planning, and it talks a lot about the cost, the proposed cost and proposed funding, and then this particular network has a little bit more information, but not much more. And then this last one has all of our equity, transit, park access, all of those scores. They're used to get the final criteria for the score for the roadway to determine which tier it would be in. And then this is our other field here. So you can see here on the left, the proposed fields. We're looking at, you know, quite a few, but to kind of go through the different categories is just, this is kind of overall information for that particular segment. So it would include project name, project status. So in the case of Barber Street, this is, you know, Barber Street project, bike and ped project would be the name. And then the status, we're just doing project status, which would be preliminary concept or public input, whichever we want to call our current status, and then to and from and what street it's along. And then from here, we've got, this is the bike stuff here. So we've got bike category, which would be delineated or buffered or separated. Bike type is bike lanes, shared use path or multi-use path, sharrows, those types of things. And then protected would be a yes, no value. And we discussed this a little bit in that email, Mark, but the idea here is that you can have buffered bike lanes that are protected or unprotected. And so we kind of wanted to add that protection, you know, and this is the existing, right? And then this is proposed. So this looks at, you know, what's the ideal, what do we have? And then we've got bike tier and the segment score. Then we kind of do all the same thing for pedestrian. Do we got any questions about that so far?
Was there a linkage? So what drives whether you would use a sharrow versus unprotected bike lane versus buffered versus protected versus separate path is traffic speed and volume, right? And
yeah, I believe so. I think, you know, that's talked about within the plan. And so this would really just be a way to track. And so by having all of these fields, you can very quickly, easily see, okay, here are, you know, here's the symbology we want to use for where all the separated facilities would be versus, you know, bike lanes and multi-use paths. And so you could really start to show them in different colors and show how that all is interconnecting. And it can help visually just plan out that network.
Okay.
Now with a PED category and type, you know, there's really, it's sidewalk and there's multi-use path. So I don't know if this is going to be necessary, but I wanted to create it just in case. We can always delete it. But, you know, I don't know if we want to, I mean, buffered sidewalk, you know, some sidewalks in the county are just right on the curb and they're not buffered. And some of the buffers are landscape buffer versus pavement buffer. And so I think it's important, you know, this is where we could potentially start getting a lot more data on that type of stuff.
There's certainly a big difference in the user experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Moving down into this lower section, and so this is this an AIM corridor? Because there are plenty of sidewalks that are outside of the corridor. and study areas that as we continue to work with people, we're going to want to be able to take notes on, oh, hey, there's kids walking along this sidewalk or along this dirt path to the school, and it's not actually inside Athens in Motion because it didn't qualify for the minimum qualifications to be considered. And so, we want to make sure that we can also kind of track those and put in recommendations too. There's add to AIM, which is just kind of a note for us to add it in the future. And then we've got sidewalk gap, ownership, maintenance, and then just updated notes. So these are all just kind of things to, as I continue to get calls and work with people to plan things, I like to make sure I can put all that information in here so that if I got a call about a particular area, I can have everything kind of on the fly, right there, ready to go. Now, this stuff is all getting into the completion date versus the final release date. This is kind of tracking information for us to be able to, show, hey, here's everything that was done in this year, so far, et cetera. And then I know the bike and ped costs were all like really low and not standard, but I like the idea of having that field, and we could potentially kind of redo that study at the next 5-year portion. Or I could use this field to actually update those costs if we, as we get those kind of cost estimates for different areas. And then there's funding source versus proposed funding source. So something good to keep track of. All of the scores. And then we get down into information about that particular roadway. So what classification is it? What's the speed, width? Is it lighted or unlighted? What's the surface? And condition. This is all, so the surface would be about that particular lane, whether it's like a sidewalk, concrete, or asphalt, that kind of thing. And we also have this project identifier that'll connect all those data sets together. And this goes back to the Athens in Motion plan. And yeah, and from there, there's this other kind of stuff that's just, it's to make the data work and connect to other things. So none of this is really super important for our discussions, but this is all just kind of those extra fields that get added on at the end. So with all of that, I'm kind of curious if y'all can think of any other types of things that would be really helpful to keep in this data set for future bike ped planning. Do you have thoughts on that?
It's a lot to absorb at once.
Yeah. So these equity scores and transit scores and the AIM score, I think, up farther towards the top of the spreadsheet, those are calculated by some sort of internal calculation that you have.
Yeah, so those were calculated as part of the original Athens in Motion plan, and there's a section that it talks about. I don't have the weights of that particular scoring metric, but that's how they're originally calculated, was as part of that whole.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything like this. There's a certain degree of arbitrariness to it, and in terms of how things are weighted and how some things end up in tier 1 versus 2. I'm not sure to what extent it actually considered current level of usage. So, for example, if Prince Avenue corridor, which is tier 1, because it currently gets fairly heavy usage, I don't know how that kind of all figures into it. But anyway, I'm glad that it does address some things that aren't always addressed when we're thinking about bike pedestrian projects. So like the linkages to transit and equity and safety. So I think that is good. But yeah, is there, I guess what I'm still thinking about, is there a linkage to, or can you link to a database that has information on the volume and speed in each of these segments, where you're talking about a segment from, Prince from Millage to Pulaski. I think the speed limit there is 35. It goes down to 30 at one segment. Those kind of things would inform the kind of treatment that would be recommended, and that you could see discrepancies between what's currently there and what would be optimal given the speed and volume. So I don't know if it wouldn't be part of this database. It would just be a way to link to it, and I don't know how easy or hard that would be to do.
Could it be like another layer on that GIS map that you have, if you just had another layer that had that type of information? I was also thinking along the same lines as, is there a layer that you could add in that could pinpoint pedestrian and bike crashes that have occurred over the last 5 years or something like that?
So we actually have access to those databases, and so what we could do is those would probably be kept within those systems, because I don't necessarily have an export of GIS data for that.
Right.
But there's a few different, I just had a meeting like last week with GDOT, and there are a few different platforms that they use. One of them, it's like a live update of all of the crashes across the whole state, and you can filter it down, and you can see, which lanes are blocked by which accidents, and you can even filter out, was a bike or a pedestrian involved in this crash. The most important thing there is obviously making sure that on the reporting side, those police officers who are responding are recording that a bike or a pedestrian was involved. But I think there's been a lot of work towards that to improve it. And we can also, we also have access through Gears to actually pull up all those accident reports. And so you can look at kind of the frequency, over a time period of accidents. Now there's a couple other data sets as well that do look at, what is the, kind of traffic speed, and it actually looks at that, the recorded traffic speeds, according to their speed data, not just the speed limit.
Right.
And so this data would have our speed limits, but which that would, be able to inform in terms of looking at a roadway. Okay, this area, has this speed, and so we can or can't do these certain treatments to the facilities. Like Prince Avenue, for instance. But yeah, we do have, we did just get access to those other data sets, and I plan on taking a deep dive into that, and really starting to work on utilizing that data towards those other discussions.
Okay.
Because I don't think that's universally recognized. I mean, in the Prince Avenue corridor discussions, there've been like, we'll make really big sharrows on Prince Avenue, and I still don't think that's going to be a safe option, unfortunately. But great. Well, this is great. I don't have anything else to, and if I think of anything, it's like I said, it's a little overwhelming, frankly,
it's
right now.
extremely thorough, I would say.
And it's incredibly thorough. Yes, good work, Dan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm still planning on meeting with our GIS guy in Public Works to find out if he can think of anything that's been missed, or even a good process to kind of merge all these databases together. And yeah, I'll be, it's not super easy to add additional fields in the future, so that's why I try to get as thorough as possible. And so, but we can always create supplementary data sets that kind of pair with this one that look at some of those other things. So,
cool.
Good. Yeah.
I had a question, and this just arose from the conversations we've been having on the Prince Avenue Corridor Committee. And, it's become clear the driving force behind a lot of the prioritization has been safety, and for all road users, including automobiles, but also bike and pedestrian. And one of the priorities, actually one of the most highly rated items, was increasing and enforcement of speed limits and addressing illegal speeding along that corridor, which anecdotally, certainly walking by, it catches your attention when you see someone go 60 miles an hour across Barber Street near the grid. You definitely notice that. It's certainly not the majority, but it is there. And that's, I think, in part, I rarely see any kind of enforcement. Is there any way to find out, for example, how many speeding tickets have been issued in a year or over the years in a particular segment of roadway? Is that something that's accessible to us?
I think within the Prince Avenue user group meeting, we could use that platform to request that data from the police department. They would be able to filter that out and provide. I know that they can provide crash reports. I would assume that they could provide ticketing reports, but that's the question for them to answer.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to understand, it's not pointing fingers or anything like that. I'm just trying to understand, where are their priorities? Are they prioritizing the loop, for example, which is, high-speed vehicular traffic? That's important too. Or is it just harder to do in town? I just like to understand that better and hopefully communicate with them that we'd love to see them prioritize some of these key corridors that see a lot of bike and pedestrian traffic as well, like Millage and Barber and Prince Avenue. So.
Well, and that actually brings up a really good point. There's this concept of safety corridors that have been kind of talked about. And our first one that we're going to be proposing is Tallahassee, because there's been a high number of crashes along there.
Yep.
But this is something that a lot of the managers are really excited about. And so we're going to be essentially kind of creates a corridor where you work with police and kind of public information. There's a public education aspect to it, but there's also an increased frequency of tickets and warnings for really expressing why it's so important that those speeds go slower and highlighting those things. So if you look up safety corridors and you read about that, that's kind of the something that we're going to be trying out here shortly. And I could see that as like Prince Avenue would be a really interesting like second or third roadway to add on to that list.
See, there may be funding opportunities around that as well, I would think, if it's kind of becoming a national thing or a statewide thing. Okay,
yeah, I
good.
would hope so.
Good. Well, we're getting close to 5 o'clock. I think we're just scheduled to go till 5. Did we have anything else to cover? Dan, James, Todd, Alex?
I can't think of anything, Mark.
All right. Very good.
I can't
Well, I
think
think it
of
was a
anything
productive
either.
meeting. I think we've got our marching orders deadline. I'll send around a summary of the minutes of the meeting, but I assume that everyone is able to access the document. If you can't, email me and we'll work it out, and I'll resend the link or whatever I need to do. But if you can't access it, just talk to me, and then hopefully we'll have a more or less final draft by a week from today.
All
I
right,
don't think we have to.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Do you want to set up another meeting?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Do you think we need another meeting to finalize things, 3 or 4 days before it's due?
It could probably go through email, but we can set up a call.
Why don't you set up a call and then we can cancel if things are looking great and we're, like on the, I don't know, what the 27th is or whatever, a few days during the week, but a few days beforehand. Then we can, let's see, that would be 31st is a Monday. 31st, it's due Memorial Day. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, something midweek of the week before, like
right.
the 26th or so.
If we're gonna do 26, yeah, like 4 to 5 or 5 to 6.
I could do 4 to 5 or 4:30 to 5:30. I have a 5:30 conflict.
Okay.
Like I said, hopefully we can get this knocked out and just cancel that. And I would even say, yeah, we can. It hopefully wouldn't even take the whole time. But why don't you schedule something in that block?
Okay.
And okay, good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and throw that together, and then we can cancel it if we need to.
Sounds good.
I'm good for that if you want to send me something.
All right.
Good. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for your help.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
And we're going to call to adjourn the meeting, so-called. James,
Seconded.
you're nodding in agreement.
Seconded.
Verbally. All right, excellent. Okay, have
All
a great
right.
rest of your evening, guys.
All right, you too.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
All right, you do.
Bye.
Bye.